G'day. Today we are going to be covering one of the coolest swords I have yet to go over, the School of Griffin Witcher Sword from Swordier. First thing that struck me when I first handled it, quick disclaimer, this is not mine. Once again, I am borrowing a friend's sword for review, so I am limited on the full detail I can go into. However, the first thing I was struck by with this sword is how comfortable it is to hold just single-handed. You've got a large two-handed handle in this thing, and even still, the balance and weight for holding it single-handed is incredible. It's by far way nicer than any of the swords I've gone over yet. None of them, even the Enselm sword, has nearly as much comfort when holding it single-handed and when I go in for a swing. I mean, this thing is incredible. Something that does strike me out immediately with the blade is that beautiful distill taper. Swordier seems to always do a consistently great job of doing that. They don't just grind in grind lines, they actually ensure that you have a proper distill taper in all your blades. The fuller only goes down from the guard towards tip about 2/3 of the blade length, but that in itself doesn't make much difference for how it's not a full bladed fuller with just how perfect the weight of this thing is. The blade itself is some pretty sturdy material. Off the top of my head, I am not sure what type of steel this is for the base model, and I'll put that right down here along with the retail price. And of course, as all the swords I've gone over so far, link down in the description of where you can buy it. It's unaffiliated, so don't tell them I sent you. Next, the blade also is full tang. It's advertised as that, and the way it's peened over shows that the tang is nothing like the rat tail pommels of the past that a lot of the fake replicas would often make. Let's see. So you can see a little bit right there of what the tang looks like when peened over. I gotta say, I also like the fact that they added in a spacer so that if the handle is damaged and you gotta work on it, you're actually able to carefully grind off the tang. And if you hit a little bit of the spacer, that's okay. You still have plenty of tang left. Next, we're gonna go over the guard and then the pommel. So first with the guard. This style of forward guard I don't have much experience with. The most unique guard I've had experience with is from the Clooney hand and a half sword, which has the unique S shape to it. However, the guard it's shaped out on the sides instead of being a flare out forward. I can see a lot of benefits for this style of guard, being able to trap an opponent's blade, as well as narrowing down the space in which your guard takes up. However, the difference of space that makes is menial. I'm not a fan of the way the guard works, but that in itself is something that would be more up to buyer of what they would prefer. But I mean, it's the Witcher sword. You gotta love it. They actually socketed the blade into the guard, so the guard actually is fitted to the blade itself as well. I will see if I can insert a few images of what that would look like right here. And next is the pommel. The pommel is one solid piece, which is really nice. A lot of times they will cast this material or use two pressed cups that get kind of riveted together along the edges and ends up being hollow. I've seen a number of swords that claim to be like Witcher swords or fancy swords with fancy pommels where they do that and it has next to no weight in it, as well as just being totally fake. It's just pressed or stamped sheet metal that's been pressed into the shape. However, this has been CNC milled or possibly cast, which I doubt considering it's all steel and solid. It's been painted, so I'm more inclined to believe that the griffin sigil on it has been milled into the blade, which exponentially improves the quality. It really just brings it all together. You couldn't ask for anything better than the fact that they went to the detail of CNCing the face of the griffin in. Though this sword is fairly lightweight and for its point of balance being about 1.5 inches roughly away from the guard, this thing feels nice in the hand. I mean, you don't feel like it's overly clunky. You don't feel like it's gonna fall apart just when you swing it. I mean, this thing feels like it's meant to be used as a sword. It is a replica, and it possibly has some flaws due to the fact that it's based off of a video game sword, but it actually feels like a functional sword and probably would perform as one. I can't wait to get one of my own one day, and hopefully it's sooner rather than later. Now, the handle is really, really well done. They have it wrapped in leather and then stitched up the back or on the side with just simple cross stitching so that it keeps it all together. They did a kind of knurling on it, which appears to be what they did was they took a wooden handle or a 3D printed handle. They wrapped it in the leather while gluing it, and to get it to hold on tighter to the leather and the glue, what they will do is you'll take a string and just keep wrapping around tight to where the string is also fitting tight on there. So what happens is as you wrap it, it pushes all the glue into every conceivable space, as well as just getting your leather handle on this, in this case, tight up to how the handle needs to fit so that you don't end up with like a bunch of air bubbles or loose points in the leather wrapping. They have added some very nice shaping into the handle as well. You got a little bit of a bowing inward on the top portion and a similar on the bottom, but it also tapers down a little narrower, to better fit the grip of the hands so that you are fitting in a more natural position for how your hands want to grip. So the center of the mass of your hand is actually fitting into the handle, whereas the outer mass is fitting out. And what that allows for is the tighter you grip something, the harder it is to actually let it move or slide. So lastly is the sheath. This one did come with a sheath. Sad thing is it does not come with a sword belt or a method of mounting the blade to a sword like some do. For my buddy, I just got some simple rain material as always and made a very simple sword belt that needs a little bit more work. We kind of made it a little hastily. It fits me fine, but he has a lower center of mass than I do, as well as being a lefty. So it's a little harder for me to size it up in that way, especially now, even though I have it, I actually need him physically here. But it sits very nicely for the weight. It's not overly top heavy, like I said. The sword itself is surprisingly light. I mean, this thing handles like a dream. Sits at a perfect height once it's been belted up, at least weighs for me. My buddy, though, it's very obvious it needs a little bit more work for him. Now, the belt not being a part that comes with. Now, the fact that it lacks a sword belt is not entirely a con, but in a lot of ways it also is a bit of a downside, because then a lot of people, it's very obvious when going to most events, a lot of people don't actually know how to make something like a sword belt. A lot of people will just stick it in their belts and then be basically holding all day, or do the worst thing possible using duct tape. I've seen it happen a number of times, to tape it to a belt to hold it in place. Not a lot of people can understand right away how to do all the work it takes to make a sword belt. Mine are, I will say, in my own opinion, on the cruder side. But even still, it's leagues ahead of what a lot of people that would be ordering something like this could get on their own. Not having a sword belt is definitely a downside. However, that's not the main part of what we're going over here. What's nice about the sheath, though, is it did have shoulders put in place for different styles of belt to suspend it from. You have 1, 2 on the top portion, and it looks like, 2 on the bottom portion for the 2 points of holding a belt. It does help for sure in being able to mount it, and there's a lot of different belts that you could actually set up with this being a fantasy sword. It's not required that you have a very specific style of period belt for this. I mean, if you can figure out how to do the back scabbard, do it 100%. I would even suggest that you have to do it. Key details about the sheath for aesthetics. They gave it a very nice bluish hue to the, like a very dark hue that you would see Geralt have on some of his armor throughout the games. And at the top of the sheath, where the blade meets, there's another griffin's head, which is also really cool to be just the fact that they went to that level of detail to impression on the leather. Also, one of my favorite parts when it comes to swords, sword cap. Or not sword cap, sheath cap. So if it drags on the ground, it's not going to damage your sheath. So, final impressions of this sword is, I love it. The whole of the sword is just everything a nerd would want, like myself would want. You have everything from the details of the griffin's head, the guard, and the fact it's a functional blade and not just a wall hanger. You could actually use this in just cutting tests in your backyard. You could probably take it in, maybe get away if you wear it correctly, with wearing it at a reenactment event as being your fancy knightly sword. This is very easily able to fill a lot of different roles very fast for just about anything you'd be able to come up with. Final thoughts and recommendations. I would give this an 11 out of 10. They overdid themselves for just impressions on the blade. Hopefully here in the future I can convince my buddy to let me do some cutting tests on it. I'm really wanting to get into that this summer with pretty much all the swords I reviewed and be able to more fully go into depth of how well they perform. I'm not going to be doing some of the more extreme tests some people do. I don't have the ability to replace my swords, and I like the ones I have. Final note, get this sword. It's worth it. Other than that, thank you. If you made it this far in the video, thank you for watching. Check out some of my other videos. I would definitely recommend the Gun versus Armor series I've been going through. That has been a fairly fun series to be figuring out just how effective hand cannon versus munitions grade armor would have been in its period. Thank you for watching. Take care.